Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley. Welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. Appreciate everybody being in here. Man, it is the game of the week. In all intensive, in every aspect, it is the game of the week. Not just for Tech, not just for BYU, not just for the Big 12, but for the entire country. This is the game of the week. I don't want to try to downplay this on how important this is to the conference, how big a football game it is. It is. And it's okay to say that. I don't think we should shy away from being that. They've given us the spotlight for whatever reason this week, and we should take full advantage of it. Not only Tech, not only BYU, and not only the conference, and fans, everybody. Take advantage. Here we are, damn it. Let's stand up and let's give them a show. And let's show them who the hell the Big 12 is, and so people can look whether a bunch of people are watching or not. I really don't care. I don't care. I just want to put on a great show and have a great football game, which I think it's going to be. So that's what we're going to dive into here today. Appreciate everybody being in here. Before we get started, remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in the comments section, and always hit that notification bell so you know exactly when Big 12 Insiders content comes out, people. So let's get started. First, there are some other games that are going on within the Big 12, believe it or not. Two games that it's Iowa State at TCU. Can Iowa State get off the schneid? Like, they've lost 4 in a row. Their season has collapsed. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That has happened. Can they turn it around? Can they technically play spoiler to TCU? And can TCU act like a team that is still in the race to get to Arlington? Like, can they act like that? Because the last few weeks, they just haven't acted like a team that's really that interested. The one thing is, I could be wrong, though. And you know me, I have no problems with being wrong. Maybe I'm wrong with how talented I think they are or how good they can be. Maybe they're not capable of that. I don't know. I think this is a game where we'll actually find out because TCU is not out of this. They're not. But at some point, you have to act like it. Are you going to stand up and say, you know what? We want to try to get to Arlington. Or are you going to say, yeah, this is all we got? This is all we got. So we'll find out. Intriguing matchup. Another one, again, is Houston going to UCF. That is actually tonight. You know how I just love Friday night football. Having said all of that, can Houston bounce back? They let an opportunity slip away. They couldn't handle success. They couldn't. They just couldn't. And that's part of the building process of a program. Having said all of that, can they bounce back and find a way to go on the road and win a game against a team that is basically eyeballing this game as one of those games that they need to win? Now, I'm not familiar with the space game. Somebody said this is the space game. I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to speak on it because I don't know a whole lot about it. And I don't disrespect teams, programs, or anything. If I don't know anything about it, I'm just not going to talk about it. And I don't. But what I do know is that UCF's trying to get to a bowl game. UCF is ahead of schedule. UCF says, we win this game, there's another game left on our schedule we think we can win, and we're going to a bowl game, and nobody thought we were going to be able to do that year one. Here we are. So, intriguing matchup. But besides all of that, people, let's not kid ourselves. Game of the week, game of the year in the Big 12 Conference up to this point is BYU traveling to Texas Tech. And I know I've been hyping this game up, and there's some people that have gotten the comments and say, you're hyping it up too much. It's not that big a deal. I'm like, it is that big a deal. It is that big a deal. Now, and we've got our resident troll that comes in every week to tell me that nobody's watching Big 12 football, but clearly you are because you come in every week to tell me that nobody's watching. So there's that. Having said all of that, I think the game is incredible. I really do. I think it's going to come down to a few things. We're going to break the game down, but I don't think there's a reason that we shouldn't be hyping this game up to be as big as it is. Look, we've been crying and whining and complaining, and deservingly so, about being in the spotlight, about getting some respect within our conference. Game day is coming. This is the second week in a row that Game Day has decided that the Big 12 is worthy of us showing up. And regardless of whether you like ESPN or not, also regardless of whether you can see ESPN or not, but that's a different conversation for a different day, is ESPN is the hub of college football. It just is. We're lying to ourselves if we say that it isn't. It is. And Game Day, again, whether you like it or not, is still the pillar of pregame shows in college football. I mean, everything. I mean, first of all, it's been going on forever. They do put on a good show. Again, whether you have something against the network or not, Game Day in itself, to me, is outstanding. And for 2 weeks in a row, they have decided the Big 12 is worthy. Now, you could say, well, there's no other games to go to. Okay, that's not our problem. We've got the opportunity. So, and last week, I mean, if you watched Game Day last week, it was incredible in Salt Lake City. I think we're going to get the same type of atmosphere. It might even be more because Game Day is there and the football game is right after it's over. So I think it's going to be even more incredible. I love that they have given us this opportunity, and now it's time for us to stand up. Let's get into the game. First off, BYU. They had a week off to be able to kind of, lick their wounds, heal up, rest, and get ready for a physical football game, because I think that's what this is going to be. This is also going to be their biggest test to date. I'm sure that pisses off Utah fans, and it might, but let's just all be honest. Tech beat the brakes off of Utah, and it did. Stop with the, but it was in the last 8 minutes. They still keep score the last 8 minutes. They do. They don't stop the game at 52 minutes and say, that's it. That's the end of it. No. This is the biggest test that BYU will have faced all season long. And it just is. How will they handle it? How are they going to handle the hoopla and the environment? What will BYU do? Because, again, biggest game that they've played to date this year. And that might drive some people crazy because they played their rival at home a few weeks back. This is a bigger game. The longer that you get into the season and the better you are, and when you play better competition, the games get bigger. Even a rivalry game, the games get bigger. This is the biggest game that they've played. Tech, this is going to be Tech's biggest physical test when everybody on their team is technically healthy. And I know people will say, well, look, they lost to Arizona State and they got beat up in that game, but they didn't have their quarterback. And they didn't. And the backup, who had played well against Utah, you played lousy. He did. And everybody knows that. But regardless of the case, BYU's more physical than Arizona State, and that's not a knock to anybody. But this is going to be the most physical test that Texas Tech has had up to date. Can they block out all the noise? Can they block out all the hoopla? Because, the advantage for BYU is they're the visitor with all this stuff going on. When you're at home, it's different. It's a different animal, because you see the ESPN trucks rolling in. You see them building, the set and everything for Game Day. You see all of it. It's a different type of hoopla. And for me, the biggest thing for Texas Tech is, will they not let this be a Tech moment? And Red Raider fans know exactly what I'm talking about. And before some of you get your panties in a bunch, you know exactly what I mean. There have been instances over the years where we think something about Texas Tech and they come out and they lay an absolute complete egg. We know it. You know it. So stop. You don't even need to get in the comments. Now, I will say this. This team is different. A lot of those guys haven't been around for those quote-unquote Tech moments. But you Red Raider fans, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Will this be different? We'll see. We'll see. Now, let's go on to the keys of the game, ladies and gentlemen. Control the line of scrimmage. Every single week I say it, and I'm going to continue to say it. But look, I'm an old offensive lineman. It is what it is. But control the line of scrimmage. I'm going to give Tech the advantage, but here's why. They're holding teams to 74 yards a game rushing. That's tops in the league, one of the top teams in the entire country. That also included, here's the thing to remember, a Utah team that they went to Utah and held them to 101 yards rushing and 3.3 yards a carry. That's the same Utah team that ran for 226 yards and over 6 yards a carry against BYU a few weeks ago. Now, you can give me all the excuses about, well, the quarterback was hurt, yada, yada, yada. We all watched that football game. Texas Tech's defensive front seven destroyed Utah, who I believe, and I have said it many times, has the best offensive line in the country. I don't know how many times I've said it. We watched the game. They physically manhandled them. I don't care if it was game 3, 5, 10. I don't care. We watched it with our own eyes. That's how physical this Texas Tech front seven can be. That's how physical they can be. Also, Tech can also run the football. You know, I think a lot of people think that it's the old Texas Tech. They throw it all over the lot. That's not true. They're third in the league, 197 yards rushing, and they have two backs, Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams, that can literally take over the game at any time. Not to mention, if one's not going, the other one usually is. You better hope they both aren't going at the same time. Otherwise, it's a problem. However, BYU is super physical. And when first of all, they're very good against the run. They just don't like to give up yards. They're very good against the run. But they can run it too. And that's the thing. We're talking about physicality and who can control the line of scrimmage. And where they have an advantage is they get their quarterback involved. You know, Bear Bachmeier runs the football. And you think, well, how is that an advantage? Because you have an extra blocker. They run a ton of quarterback powers. You get an extra blocker in there. They want to be physical. They'll run in between the tackles with their quarterback. That gives you an advantage. And so that's one of the things that they like to incorporate. They're going to have to do that more. They're going to have to figure out a way because Tech wants to stop it. BYU wants to do it. That's why I love this matchup so much. But this week, I say it every week, but I really believe this week is, and physicality, like I say, physicality usually wins the day. And the team that is more physical usually wins the game. Doesn't always happen. And we've seen it on several instances where it doesn't. But this week, I believe the team that is the more physical football team is the team that wins the game. That's what I believe. Who controls the line of scrimmage, I think that's who's going to win. Now, we talk about quarterbacks. You know, who's going to be special? It's college football. You get a special quarterback, you know, you can do some things. Bear Bachmeier, it's been a steady progression on how much better he has been throwing the football. Last game out at Iowa State, threw for 307, 2 touchdowns, looked phenomenal throwing the football. If you'd have asked him to do that the first 3 weeks of the season against really good competition, there's no way he would have been able to do that. He has gotten so much better throwing the football as the season has gone on. Can't state it enough how much better he has gotten throwing the football. But he can also run it. You know, we know what he can do running the football, like I just mentioned. You know, BYU wants to incorporate him in the running game and just running those QB powers, getting the extra blocker involved, you know, and just being physical at the point of attack and be willing to say, we'll take our quarterback and we'll run for 3.5, 4 yards and we'll be fine with it. I love that approach. Hopefully that they stick with it or they're able to do that. But I like where Bear Bachmeier is. Now, as far as Baron Morton is concerned, look, he's not healthy. And maybe he'll be better this week. But last week at Kansas State, you saw him. I mean, he's limping around. You know, now they don't rely on him to run the football. Like, they're not running QB powers with him, like they did to back up. They're not doing that with him, and they're not going to do that in this game. But he is very mobile. That's the thing. It's like he can get outside the pocket. He did that against Kansas State too, but his mobility was limited. You could see it. You could see it. Now, will he be better this week? We'll see. But his mobility is limited. But here's the thing. His game isn't predicated on him running the football. Using his legs to get outside the pocket to create things, or to get outside the pocket and get you a first down here or there, that's different. But it isn't predicated on them. You're not losing anything by saying, okay, we're not going to run him this week, and you're losing, part of your offense. They're not doing that with him very often, if at all. So, and he's still deadly accurate. We saw that against Kansas State. So I think the matchup is even. I'm going to give it a stalemate. And I know BYU fans are going to be up in an armor about that because, but look, if Bear Morton's healthy, I'll just say this. If he's healthy, he's better than Bear Bachmeier. I don't care what you say. He's better, because the way he can throw the ball and the weapons that they have and the way he can utilize them, he's a better quarterback. Doesn't mean that your quarterback isn't good. Relax. Nobody said that. I know we get on the internet, and if somebody says somebody's better than somebody else, that means I'm saying somebody's bad. I never said that. I just believe one person is better than the other. But in this matchup, I think it's a stalemate because Morton's legs, his ankle, he's compromised. So, special teams. Both of them are pretty good. Tech leads the conference as far as kickoff returns. They're 6th in punt returns. BYU is 4th in punt return, or 5th. Yeah, 4th in punt returns and 5th in kickoff returns. So the hidden yardage, who's going to win that battle? Who's going to win the battle of hidden yardage? Both of them are pretty good at trying to accomplish that. Then you move on as far as who's going to win the game. And look, turnovers, we talk about that each week. Both teams, if you're wanting to win the turnover battle. That's number one. Who's going to win the turnover battle? We just talked about hidden yardage and the line of scrimmage. We've talked about all of that. Whose quarterback is going to be special? So you take it all into account. Physicality, quarterback, turnover battle, hidden yardage, and we'll see about coaching, because coaching matters too. You get in these close games, and do coaches tighten up, or can they still keep it loose? That's the difference. And we've seen both do both. We've seen coaches tighten up in certain situations. I thought Joey McGuire did that at Arizona State. I get it. He was with the backup quarterback. We saw him tighten up a little bit. We seen Kehlani Sitake do it even in a win against Utah. Make some very questionable decisions. Now, they won the game, but it wasn't because of those decisions. And that's the thing. Let's see what happens, what these coaches do in these tight situations. Let's not leave that to chance and act like that doesn't matter, because it absolutely does. But what I think Tech has a better roster from top to bottom. I don't think there's any doubting that Tech has a better roster. Doesn't mean BYU has a bad one, though, because they don't. They have a very good roster. I just think Tech's is a little bit better. They're at home. They're playing at home. That means something. It's going to be rowdy. Absolutely going to be rowdy. BYU, for me, is still fighting for respect, though. BYU is a team that is still battling for respect. I've seen in the comments some Tech fans, what are you talking about? Nobody's disrespecting them. They're ranked 7th in the country. Let BYU lose this game and then tell me where they're ranked and tell me that they're still being respected. They are just waiting for BYU to lose so they can dismiss them the exact same way they did last year. That's what I'm talking about, fighting for respect. It's not that they're going to give them the benefit of the doubt of being undefeated up to this point, and they've earned it, by the way. But for some reason, the nation just can't get to a point to where they can respect them. I just don't know. I don't know how many games they're going to have to win to get respect. Now, you could say, well, Big B, you don't respect them. Yeah, it's not that I don't respect them. I think that there's games that I think teams are going to win and stand up and beat them. Doesn't mean I don't think they're a good football team, though. So that's what I'm talking about is BYU still fighting for respect. It's weird. It's wild. But I think that's what's still going on for whatever reason. Having said that, I've got Tech. I think Tech wins this one 27-21 in an absolute thriller. You're going to get the ebb and flows of a football game, the back and forth, physicality from both sides. That's who I think. 27-21 Tech. I think it needs to be a good game for the conference. It needs to be a good game for both teams. I want it to be a good game. Don't want to see a blowout. That doesn't do the conference any good. And to be quite honest with you, it doesn't do either team any good to blow somebody out. Now, no, you might think that's crazy, but let's say whoever wins, they blow out the other team. Well, they're not going to get that same respect that I was just talking about. Oh, well, they weren't really that good to begin with. They blew that team. Yeah, that's why. They weren't really that good. And that'll happen. That will happen. So that's where I'm at with it. I hope it's a great game. Should be a great game. I'm anticipating it being a great game. Cannot wait to watch all the festivities, man. It's going to be great. It's going to be great for both teams, the city of Lubbock, but not more importantly, but also the Big 12 Conference. So appreciate you guys, man. Thank you as always. Been a good week. Should be a great Saturday as well. So not a ton of games, but some good games. So appreciate you guys, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.